I wasn't supposed to look under my car that morning. I only bent down because something metallic glinted near the front tire. At first, I thought it was trash, a bolt, a piece of foil, anything ordinary, but when I pulled it free, it was a tracker. A live, blinking GPS tracker duct taped to my frame. Someone was following me, someone who knew where I parked, where I slept, where I lived. So I did the one thing nobody expecting it would ever predict. I mailed the tracker to Greenland. And 2 days later, my phone rang. The voice on the other end was shaking. And the first thing they said was, "Sir, whoever is after you, they are already here." My name is Alan Mercer. I'm 61 years old, and I've lived quietly for a decade in a small neighborhood outside Boulder, Colorado. I raised my kids, buried my wife, and thought my life storms were finally behind me. But the tracker I found under my car wasn't a mistake, it wasn't a prank, and it wasn't random. It was the beginning of something I thought I left behind 25 years ago, something that never stopped looking for me. I didn't sleep well the night before it happened. One of those restless nights where you wake up every hour for no reason at all, like your body knows something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. At 6:12 a.m., I finally gave up trying to sleep and stepped outside to warm up my old truck. The winter air bit at my lungs as I walked across the driveway. Frost clung to the windshield. The sun hadn't even considered rising yet. Everything was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes the back of your neck itch. I reached for the driver's door, then saw something silver glinting under the front bumper. At first, I ignored it. Probably a soda can someone's kid kicked, or a loose metal bracket that needed tightening. But then something instinct, age, survival told me to bend down and check. The gravel pressed into my knees as I crouched. My breath fogged the cold air. I reached under the bumper and closed my fingers around the object, not a bracket. Not trash, a device. A small, black, heavy rectangle with a magnetic strip and a blinking red light. A tracker. My heart slowed to a crawl. My throat tightened around my breath. These things weren't toys. They were used by bounty hunters, private detectives, or people who wanted to know exactly where you went and when. My hands shook as I turned it over. The serial number had been scratched out. Whoever put this on my truck did not want it traced. I straightened slowly, looking around the silent street. No cars passing, no neighbors out, no footprints in the thin frost except my own. Whoever placed it there did it at night, when I was asleep, just feet from where my head rested. A chill ran up my spine. I stood still for almost a full minute, listening for anything, footsteps, whispers, the breath of someone hiding. Nothing, stillness, too much stillness. My mind raced through possibilities. A mistake, a prank, wrong car. No, this was intentional. Whoever wanted to track me knew exactly which vehicle was mine. And I knew one thing instantly. I wasn't calling the police. Not because I didn't trust them, but because 30 years ago, I used to work on cases that still show up in my nightmares. Cases involving people who didn't care about laws. Cases involving people who didn't forget. I left that life when my wife got sick. I walked away because she wanted us safe and I wanted peace. But peace is a fragile thing. And the tracker told me my past had finally caught up. Most people would have smashed the tracker, thrown it in a river, tossed it in the trash. But that's exactly what the person watching expected. I thought back to an old trick we used in the early 2000s when we knew someone was tailing us. Send the tracker somewhere they could never follow. Someplace remote, cold, far enough away to confuse any surveillance team. So I went inside, grabbed a small cardboard box, wrapped the tracker in socks, and wrote an address on the label, a remote research station in Greenland that handled incoming scientific shipments. I had mailed equipment there years ago during a collaborative project. I still had the address. My hand shook slightly as I filled out the form at the post office. Long trip for a package, the clerk joked. I forced a smile. It's for a friend, I lied. He weighed it, stamped it, tossed it into a plastic bin with a dozen other parcels. And just like that, the tracker was out of my hands and on its way to a place nobody would think to check. I stepped outside, the cold air sharp in my lungs, and for one brief moment I felt safe. A fragile illusion, because when I walked back to my truck, I saw something that made my stomach drop. A white SUV parked across the street. I recognized the model. Unmarked, tinted windows. Government style but not official. Too familiar, too quiet. the engine running. Someone was inside, someone watching. My pulse thudded painfully. I got in my truck and pretended not to notice. Pretended I didn't see them. Pretended everything was normal. But as I pulled away from the curb, my eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. The SUV didn't move. It just watched me go. That was worse than being followed, because it meant they weren't watching where I went. They were watching me. I drove aimlessly for nearly an hour, hoping the tight knot of dread in my chest would loosen. It didn't. I finally parked at a small diner off the highway, a place I used to take my wife after her treatments. It was nearly empty. Just a waitress, an old man reading a paper, and a couple arguing softly in a booth. I ordered coffee. Black, hot, anything to feel grounded. When the mug hit the table, I reached for a napkin and froze. Because underneath the napkin, tucked neatly between the dispenser and the salt shaker, was a small, folded piece of paper. I knew that size, that shape, that texture. It was identical to the paper used on the tracker, the kind often tucked into shipments as identifiers. My hands went cold. Slowly, I unfolded it. A single line of typed text read, "Greenland won't save you." My breath left my lungs. The tracker had only been mailed 40 minutes earlier. No one, not even an organized team, could have tracked it and responded this fast, which meant they weren't reacting. They already knew what I planned to do. They knew hours ago. Someone had been inside my house, my truck, my pockets. They had anticipated every move, and now they wanted me to know it. I swallowed hard, the edges of the note digging into my palm. Someone in my past had found me, but who and why now? My phone buzzed. An unknown international number. I stared at it, my pulse pounding in my ears. With shaking fingers, I answered. A man's voice, low, calm, and terrifyingly familiar, slid through the speaker. "Alan, did you really think you could run from us forever?" My body went rigid. No, it couldn't be him. He was dead. He had to be. But the voice continued. "We're not angry you sent the tracker away." A pause, a soft chuckle. "We're angry you thought we wouldn't know you did." My heart slammed against my ribs. "Who is this?" I whispered. Silence. "Then check your truck, Alan." The call ended. I sat frozen for several seconds before stumbling outside. My breath fogged the air as I approached the truck, and there, tucked under my windshield wiper, was a new device. Smaller, newer, blinking green, a second tracker. They de-replaced it before I even knew the first one was gone. Someone was watching every move I made, and they wanted me to feel it. I stood there in the cold outside the diner, my breath hanging in the air like smoke. My eyes locked on the new tracker, blinking green under my windshield wiper. It wasn't taped. It wasn't hidden. It wasn't subtle. It was placed openly, deliberately, a message. "We're ahead of you." I didn't touch it, didn't remove it, didn't even breathe too close. Because a thought stabbed into me, a terrifying realization. If they could get this close to my truck, how close could they get to me? I scanned the diner parking lot. Only 3 cars. A pickup, a sedan, a rusty minivan. None looked familiar. None looked threatening. But the voice on the phone, that was something else entirely. I climbed into the truck slowly, hands shaking so badly I struggled to fit the key into the ignition. Once inside, I locked the doors. Not that locks mattered against people like this. When the engine rumbled to life, I forced myself to breathe. One inhale, one exhale. Whoever had called me, I knew that voice. But from where? My past wasn't simple. I'd buried a lot of it the day my wife's health started failing. Back when I worked intelligence consulting, I had dealt with organizations that didn't negotiate, didn't forgive, didn't forget. But it had been 25 years. Nobody hunts a man for 2.5 decades. Nobody. Unless what I knew back then was more important than I ever realized. I began driving, hands tight on the wheel, eyes flicking between the road and the tracker on the windshield. I didn't go home. I couldn't. Someone had been inside my house. Someone had planted the tracker. Someone had anticipated me mailing the first one. If they knew my patterns, my routines, my habits, home was the first place they'd look. Instead, I drove to the only place I knew nobody ever visited, my storage unit. I rented it 10 years ago when I downsized after my wife died. I barely visited it, just old furniture, boxes of papers, a few personal things I couldn't throw away. But it had one advantage: it wasn't connected to my name. I opened the gate and pulled into the dim rows of metal doors, each one identical, each one forgotten by the people who rented them. My unit 24 sat at the far end. I typed the code, pulled the door open with a groan of rust, and parked inside. Then I turned the truck off and sat in darkness. The only sound was my breath. I needed to think, to understand the pattern, to figure out why someone was tracking me after all these years. I pulled out an old metal lockbox from the corner of the unit, blew off the dust, and opened it. Inside were files from my consulting days, old reports, case notes, details about people I'd rather forget. Back then, my job wasn't to arrest criminals, it was to analyze them, predict them, help agencies understand how certain organizations operated. One file sat on top of the stack, a name I hadn't seen in decades. NORTHRIDG Initiative, a private intelligence collective that operated in the shadows, corporate espionage, political leverage, disappearing assets, the kind of people who funded governments and toppled them without anyone knowing. I opened the file, names, dates, photos, operations I analyzed, and one section circled in red pen my pen, internal betrayal suspected, high-level leak. I remembered it now. A data breach, sensitive intelligence leaked to an unknown competitor. Someone inside Northridge was selling secrets. They suspected multiple people, agents, analysts, contractors. They hired consultants like me to narrow a list of potential traitors. I found 3 strong possibilities, 3 people who had motive and access. I handed over the report. They thanked me. 2 months later, all 3 suspicious individuals were found dead. 1 suicide, 1 overdose, 1 car accident. All within 8 days, I had unknowingly given Northridge a kill list. I had never forgiven myself. And the worst part, one more name had been on my list, my strongest suspect. A man whose voice still haunted me. A man who disappeared before they could find him. A man I thought might have killed himself or left the country. His file sat at the bottom of the stack. Calder Royce. When I slid the report free and read the first line, my heart stopped. Because Calder Royce had a very distinct voice. Cold, measured, understated, the same voice that called me this morning. I dropped the file onto the floor. He was alive, and he wasn't hiding anymore. He was hunting. Before I could process it, something shifted outside the storage unit. A soft crunch of gravel, footsteps. My pulse slammed into my throat. I killed the small lantern I'd set on a crate and crouched behind a box. The footsteps stopped right outside my storage door. A shadow stretched across the floor, long and distorted from the streetlight behind the figure. Then a whisper, "Alan," my blood froze. That voice was Calder S. It was a woman, soft, steady, familiar, too familiar. I held my breath. The footsteps retreated, silence, nothing. I waited 30 full seconds before I crawled to the storage unit door and peered out. Nobody there. Only a small plastic container placed neatly on the ground. No note, no label. Just a translucent box with something dark inside. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a mirror, the kind used in compact makeup cases, and across the glass someone had written in red ink, "HES behind you." I spun violently, knife in hand, but the unit was empty. Empty except for one new thing I hadn't noticed before, a phone, set on top of a crate, old burner style, powered on. It began ringing, once, twice, 3 times. My breath shook. I answered. The same cold voice from before spoke. Greenland was clever. I swallowed hard. "Calder," I whispered. "I know it's you." A low laugh. "Then you know why I'm here." My grip tightened on the phone. "You think I betrayed you," I said. He let out a slow exhale. "You betrayed all of us." "No," I snapped. "I just reported what I found. And 3 people died because of it," he replied calmly. "You exposed the wrong ones, Alan. I wasn't the leak. You pointed them to innocence." My blood iced. "That's not possible," I whispered. "Oh, it is," he said softly. "And now, after all this time, you forced me to come clean." Silence, a long one. "Then they weren't watching you, Alan. They were watching me." My chest tightened. "What? The tracker wasn't for you." I stopped breathing. "It was for me. I hid it under your car because I needed you to send it far away. You led them off my trail." My mind spun. "You used me," I whispered. "Yes," he said, "and I'm sorry for that." A long pause. "Because now," he said quietly, "they know where you are too." My entire body went numb. And then, in the darkness of the storage unit, a second voice echoed behind me, a man's voice. "He's right." The voice behind me froze my blood, not Calder's this time. deeper, closer, standing inside the storage unit with me. I didn't turn around at first. My body locked itself in a moment of pure animal fear, the kind that tells you moving might be the last thing you ever do. The burner phone in my hand crackled. Calder whispered, "Alan, don't turn around. Listen to me." My breath shook. "Who is behind me?" I whispered back. Calder exhaled. "Not one of mine." The voice behind me repeated. Alan put the phone down. Slowly, painfully, I forced myself to turn. A man stood between me and the exit. Tall, broad-shouldered, black jacket, gloved hands, a pistol held low like he'd already decided whether I lived or died. His face was calm, expressionless, professional, not emotional, not angry. This was someone who had done this before. Calder's voice in the phone sharpened. "He's not here for you. He's here to clean up." I swallowed. Clean up what? The man raised a finger to his lips. "Quiet." I lowered the phone slowly but didn't end the call. The man stepped closer. The concrete floor creaked under his boots. He looked around the unit, at the old boxes, at the files, at the shadows. Finally, he looked at me. "Alan Mercer," he said calmly. "You did something today that caused problems." I tried to speak, but he cut me off with a simple raise of his hand. "You mailed a very important device to a very inconvenient location." The tracker, Greenland. This wasn't about me, not at first. I was just the guy who moved the wrong object to the wrong place at the wrong time. He took another step toward me. "We monitored your movements. You were supposed to destroy the tracker, not ship it across the world." My pulse thudded painfully. Behind me, the phone buzzed again. Calder's voice, harsh now. "Alan, listen carefully. You are not dealing with me. You're dealing with what's left of Northridge." My stomach twisted. Northridge. The organization I thought collapsed years ago, the one I accidentally helped identify traitors for, the one that eliminated them within 8 days, the one I ran from. The man in front of me tilted his head. "Your mistake put our operation at risk." I forced myself to speak. "I didn't even know who was tracking me." He smirked slightly. "Not who, Alan. What?" He stepped aside and pointed at the open lockbox. "You kept files, names, details, old intelligence." I shook my head. "They're worthless now, outdated." He stepped closer again, so close I could see the reflection of the dim lantern in his eyes. "Someone didn't think so." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He lowered his voice. "We've been hunting a leak inside our organization again. Someone revived a 25-year-old scandal. Someone accessed your old analysis reports. Someone sent them to foreign buyers." My throat tightened. "Are you saying I leaked something?" He gave a single, slow shake of his head. "No." "You're not clever enough for that." His words stung, but Calder's voice suddenly hardened through the phone. "He's talking about me, Alan, not you." The man's jaw tightened at the sound of Calder's voice. He recognized it. He glared at the phone. "You should have stayed dead, Royce." Calder didn't flinch. "And you should have learned not to underestimate me." The man raised the gun, at the phone, not at me. In a split second, I realized the truth. They hadn't been tracking me. They'd been using me to draw Calder out. The tracker, the notes, the warnings, all measures to corner him. My pulse roared in my ears. "Why Greenland?" I whispered. The man did lower the gun. "Because the tracker was transmitting directly to Royce whenever it was active. Sending it away forced him to reconnect, forced him to call you, forced him to reveal himself." My chest tightened. They were using me as bait. Calder hissed through the phone. "Alan, get out of there. He's not alone." Too late. Another shoe scraped on the concrete behind the rows of storage units. Another shadow moved, then another, 3 men, surrounding the exterior, closing in. The man inside the unit raised the gun to my chest, steady, icy, professional. "You have something we need, Alan." I shook my head. "I don't. Your memory." He stepped closer. "You were the only consultant who saw all the data, all the patterns, all the names. A beat. You hold the last thread to exposing a mistake we made decades ago." Swallowed hard. "What mistake?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "We killed the wrong 3. My breath left my lungs. Calder's voice erupted through the phone. "Alan, move." I didn't think, didn't plan, didn't hesitate. I swung the metal lockbox straight into the gunman's wrist. The gun fired a deafening crack that echoed off the metal walls. Pain exploded in my shoulder, but adrenaline shoved me forward. I barreled into him. We crashed into the stacks of boxes. Papers flew. The lantern shattered. Sparks, darkness, footsteps thundering outside. The man growling, trying to grab the gun. and Calder's voice shouting, "Run, Alan, now." I crawled blindly toward the back of the unit, toward a small maintenance hatch I hadn't opened in years. Behind me, the gunman shouted, "He's getting out, move in." The hatch gave way. Cold air, night wind, freedom. I stumbled into the alley behind the units as 3 men rushed in from the front. Bullets cracked, metal sparked, gravel scattered. I sprinted into the dark, blood warm on my shoulder, the phone still in my hand. Calder's voice whispered urgently, "Alan, they won't stop now." My lungs burned, my vision blurred. I kept running. Because Calder's final words were the most terrifying of all. "They don't want to kill you yet. They want you to remember." I didn't remember how long I ran. Only the cold. Only the sound of boots behind me. Only the burning in my lungs and the warmth of blood spreading down my arm. Somewhere behind me, gunshots cracked the air, but I didn't look back. Looking back was death. I stumbled across the gravel lot behind the storage units until the alley forked in 2 directions. Left led toward the highway, wide open, too exposed. Right led into the old industrial district, abandoned warehouses, empty lots, shadows deep enough to swallow a man whole. I chose the shadows. My breath came in ragged pulls as I ducked behind a rusted dumpster and pressed the phone to my ear. "Calder," I gasped. "What do they want from me? Why me? Why now?" His voice was strained, breathing uneven. "They want you to confirm something, Alan, something they've chased for years." My pulse hammered. "Confirm what?" A long silence. Then, that you were right. I blinked through the sweat and blood stinging my eyes. "Right, about what?" Calder inhaled sharply. "About the leak." My stomach twisted. "No, no, Calder, you said I gave them the wrong names. You said I led them to innocent people." "I did," he said quietly, "but not because you were wrong, because it kept you alive." I froze. He continued, "Your report didn't point to 3 suspects, Alan. It pointed to one. One person who had motive, access, and the intelligence training to disappear without a trace." My hand trembled around the phone. "Who?" His answer shattered me. "Me." I went still, like the world stopped turning. Calder Royce, the ghost, the caller, the man hunting the same hunters, had been the leak all along. "You betrayed Northridge," I whispered. "I did," he said. "And when I realized you knew, I erased your real report and replaced it with another. I made your analysis look flawed, clumsy, wrong." My voice cracked. "You let them kill 3 innocent people." A quiet exhale. "Yes," my stomach lurched. "I protected you," he said, "because your analysis exposed me. And if Northridge knew you were right, you'd have been eliminated with them." My throat tightened. "All these years," I whispered. "You watched me because you felt guilty." "No," Calder replied softly. "I watched you because Northridge never closed the file. They always suspected a 4th target." My breath froze. They suspected me next. Calder continued, "They thought you hid the real evidence, buried it, sold it, gave it to someone else." I shook my head violently. "I didn't do anything. I didn't even keep the report." "Yes, you did," Calder said. "You kept a copy without knowing it, something your wife saved the day you left consulting." My heartbeat stumbled. "My wife," I whispered. "Margaret." "Yes," he said. "She called me 4 years ago, told me she found a duplicate in the house. She didn't trust Northridge. She didn't trust me. She asked how to protect you." The alley spun around me. Calder continued, "I told her to hide it, somewhere only she would look." I squeezed my eyes shut. "The tracker wasn't for you, Alan. It was for me. But when you mailed it to Greenland, you forced them into a corner." I swallowed. "So now they want me." "No," Calder said. "They need you. They need the document your wife hid." I whispered, "But I don't know where it is." He sighed. "She did tell you. Just not in a way you understood." My pulse quickened. "What does that mean?" Before he could answer, a metallic clang echoed behind me. I whipped around. The silhouette of a man stepped into the alley, the same operative, gun raised. "Alan," Calder whispered urgently. "Run." I sprinted. My legs screamed. My shoulder throbbed. My breath tore out of me in sharp gasps. The operative fired. A bullet ricocheted off the steel siding just inches from my head. I stumbled around a corner and crashed into a chain-link fence. Dead end. I turned. He was already there, walking toward me, calm, certain, gun steady. "It's time, Alan," he said quietly. "Where is the report?" "I don't have it," I shouted. He shook his head. "Your wife did. Where did she hide it?" My back pressed against the fence. My chest burned. "I don't know," I choked. "Yes," he said, raising the gun, "you do." A soft buzz vibrated in my hand. Calder. I lifted the phone to my ear. He whispered only 4 words. Where did she sleep? My breath caught. Her side of the bed, the loose floorboard, the ring box she kept there, the one I hadn't touched since she died. My lungs seized. Oh God, it had been there the whole time. The operative noticed the change in my expression. Tell me, he said, stepping closer. I closed my eyes, and instead of answering, I dropped to the ground. The gun fired. The bullet tore through the fence above my head. I rolled under the dumpster behind me, narrow enough he'd have to crawl to follow. Calder yelled through the phone. Geo, now. I crawled out the far side, lungs burning, knees bleeding, heart racing. I sprinted through the darkness toward the only safe place left, my home, not because it was safe, but because the truth the one Northridge killed for was hiding there, just inches from where my wife once slept. I reached my bedroom floorboard with shaking hands. I pried it loose. Inside, wrapped in my wife's handwriting and sealed in a small velvet ring box, was the original analysis report, my report, the one naming Calder Royce as the true leak, the one Northridge thought I still had, the one my wife died protecting. I held it to my chest and whispered her name. I knew what I had to do next. Not run, not hide, expose them, exonerate the dead, reveal the truth, burn Northridge to the ground with the very paper they hunted me for. And as I stepped outside into the breaking dawn, my phone buzzed. A message from Calder. Thank her for me, Alan. She saved both of us.